I handed, a homeowner a flyer while doing door to door, and I realized it just sucked. And it didn't resonate with what the customer had just told me like 5 seconds ago. That really pushed me to drive innovation with flyers.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Aleph Ventures TV. Today I am very excited to have a conversation with Caleb. Caleb is the Director of Marketing for Paris Painting, and we're going to talk some marketing. Caleb, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thanks, Hoken. I appreciate it. It's an honor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big honor, brother. Big honor. A lot of people know about Paris Painting. Of course, the famous founder, Jason Paris. And I think, today, Paris Painting, very respected company. We'll get into some of the statistics about why and Caleb's role in that. Paris Painting is owned by Aleph Holdings, Aleph Ventures, and so we share the same office. So we've been talking a bunch about marketing and how things are going this year for Paris. It's obviously a very hot topic for everybody every year if you're serious about growing, especially though in 2024. So we'll talk about that, but maybe just give a little background, man. Like, where you from? Stage of life. Kind of, who is Caleb?
Yeah, I'd love to. I grew up in Minnesota, about 4 hours northwest of the cities, and came down here for college and decided to stick around. I'm 24, just turned 24 a few days ago. So pretty young marketer, still learning. Been at Paris for a couple years, and yeah.
Love it, dude. Okay, so maybe to give a little bit of give a profile of what your role is accountable to this year at a high level. Let's start there to just paint a picture of like, okay, here's what you have your arms around right now. And then I want to go back into, but that's not where, when you first started, that's not, what it looked like. But just quick profile, what does this year look like from your seat?
Yeah, from this year, I'm responsible for driving about 4,000 painting estimate appointments, trying to keep marketing spend under 6.91% on total produced revenue. So we're on track to do that. And yeah, the name of the game is really getting about 120 estimates on the calendar for sales reps through various marketing campaigns. We have a small marketing team and work with a lot of independent contractors to drive those results. And yeah, at the end of the day, I'm accountable for making sure there's estimates on the calendar and those are completed. And yeah.
Love it. Okay, and then how many sales people are you filling calendars for?
Yeah, I believe there's 10 right now. So.
Okay. And then you mentioned team. What does kind of the in-house support look like? And then, I don't know, just roughly, like how many vendors are you working with?
Yeah, I work directly with Cameron, who's oversees like all the admin support. She also has been moving into the marketing role, which is really exciting. And a lot of independent contractors. I don't work with a ton of agencies, probably like 3 to 4 agencies, and then probably up to 10 independent contractors. Okay. Virtual assistant, it's a lot of stitching it together.
Sure. Makes sense. Great, man. Okay, so I just want to settle that in. Obviously, as we talk, I think just statistically, the majority of the people who are going to listen to this don't have a Caleb in their business. So I just want to give a feel for the types of things that you do, and there's different ways that people accomplish those things. But okay, so that's what this year looks like. Maybe let's go back and how did you find yourself at a marketing position in a painting company? You said you're 24. I don't know that in the halls of universities that, hey, come be a marketer for a residential painting business is like it's on the sexy job board.
Yeah.
How the heck did you get here?
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny, Hogan, because like a little over a year and a half. Well, actually, when I was in college, I guess now it's crazy to think I'm a couple years out of college, but I worked at Menards in the painting department for a while, and I told myself I'd never work with painting ever again in my life, and I'm done with anything related to painting. And now I ended up here, but how I got here is a lot of mutual connections. I graduated North Central, studied a lot of marketing, and had a 6 month long kind of a contract with a big event in Florida. We put on a festival for 20,000 veterans, and Nate Jameson, who you probably know, was mutually connected to Nate Streeter. So then I had 2 Nate bosses in a row, and it kind of all just worked out. It was a smooth transition, and so pretty much right after I graduated, I got here in like June of 2022, so a little over 2 years ago, and I graduated in 2022 that spring. So, yeah.
Got it. Okay, that's great. So you graduate with a marketing degree. You work in the event space a little bit. I'm just trying to. Was there any other like internships, jobs in college outside of Menards?
Yeah, I also worked for a synthetic turf company for a little bit.
Okay.
Did a little bit of marketing with them, but mainly the veterans event. I did a lot of HubSpot, email marketing. I set up Fresh Desk for them. Basically, just tried to help them scale because it was chaos to get to 20,000 people.
Yeah.
So.
Got it. Okay. So you dipped your toe in a couple of different pools.
Yep.
So then you come here. What did your role look like in 2022? What were you kind of coming into? And I'd be curious just what the kind of state of the state was a bit. You sent me some info prior to this conversation where you're laying some of this out. Would love for you to hit on some of that.
Yeah, love to. So I came here in June 2022, like I mentioned earlier, and came on as a marketing specialist. And it was funny, I actually interviewed for like a customer advocate role, and then I told Nate that I was probably like a 6 out of 10 for me, and it would be a 10 out of 10 if he had a marketing role. So he came back a couple weeks later, he emailed me and said, hey, I think I got a role for you. So I started as a marketing specialist. Nate, who's the director of marketing for Aleph, I'm sure most of you know, and he really trained me in. And I started off with like SEO and kind of just dipping my toes in everything. And then it's funny, about 2 years ago, I remember sitting in this same exact spot and him asking me if I wanted to do door-to-door, something I've never done before. And that was a lot of my responsibility for 2022. And then some of 2023 was leading a door-to-door team. I think in 2022, we got around 500 appointments, and then in 2023 we did like 800 appointments from the door-to-door team. So I was leading a team of about 5 to 8. I think at one point it was up to 10, but around that. And we were trying to drive leads through there since the costs were rising. Paris Painting was landed about 8.5 million in sales in 2022. And this year we're currently at 12, turning to 12. So about a 50% growth since 2022. But yeah, that was kind of the state of the state. We were really desperate for leads. We were going door to door, and it worked to some degree, but it wasn't sustainable for scaling the type of growth that we wanted. So
yeah, tell me about that. Like, what was your experience? And maybe too, you were coming into this kind of fresh. You didn't know door to door. That wasn't something that you were steeped in.
No.
What were your maybe conceptions about door to door marketing? Like what that is, what that looks like, does it work, does it not work? And then what what was some of the learning?
Well, I'm an introvert. I didn't excite me to do door to door, but part of me, it did excite me. Like I was like, oh, I can actually talk to our customers and hopefully gain some insight. And I thought it would be pretty practical to have some sales skills. Like I'm not really into sales too much, but I was like, well, door to door, like, it's my first marketing job. I'm just gonna bite the bullet. I want to prove myself a little bit. I'm not gonna say no. I just got this job, and I can't tell them no. Like, I mean, we have a storage container in the lot that says respect the hustle. So I'm like, all right, it's time to hustle. But some of the learning was just listening to customers and listening to like potential customers as well in some of our top zip codes. And I think a lot of the learning was realizing that people perceive us differently than how we market ourselves. And when you actually talk to customers, their needs are a lot different than what you assume as well. So I think it allowed me to listen to like their unmet needs and also some of their concerns that I had no idea that they had concerns about. So I could go into a lot of what I learned, but it helped me implement a ton of insight into my marketing, into our flyers, improving our flyers and direct mail. I had kind of I had a moment where I handed, a homeowner a flyer while doing door to door, and I realized it just sucked. It was a terrible flyer, and it didn't resonate with what the customer had just told me like 5 seconds ago. So that really pushed me to drive innovation with flyers. We were running still like only 2 to 3 flyers, and we were delivering hundreds of thousands of flyers. So we weren't really iterating much. So in 2023, we did, I think, almost 50 different flyers, and this year we're doing over 300, I think. So constant iteration, improving messaging that resonates with our audience, and yeah, that's the biggest change with Paris, probably.
Yeah, man, we talked about that in the office a little bit. I thought that was very insightful that you had this experience of physically, first designing the flyer, so being behind a computer, putting it together, thinking to yourself, this will be great, this will work.
Yeah.
and then you were the messenger as well, and you actually got to physically hand it to somebody and be in their presence whenever they read it, whenever they received it, and how they interacted with it. And that is an experience that just most marketers don't get. Certainly, a lot of business owners don't get. And that was very interesting. What were some like tangible pivots or ahas or ideas that came out of that you look back to, like, if I wasn't boots on the ground for that period of time, I don't know that I would have tapped into that.
Yeah, the biggest thing is if you've done door to door, why is always the biggest. You need to answer like why you're at the door like immediately, and have a really strong reason why you're in the neighborhood. And I realized our flyers just weren't local enough. Like they weren't, like we were doing a ton of projects in these areas. We've done like the more I looked into it, I was like, holy man, we've done like 20 projects on this street, but we don't tell anyone that we've done 20 projects on this street. Like people see our yard signs, but we're not really using that as social proof. And I think with door to door, the only thing that worked for me, especially because I feel like I'm not super sleazy or I'm not the best at it, was when I was like, hey, we just painted Nancy's house 3 houses down or 5 houses down. We've actually done 10 projects on this street in the last few years. You've probably seen our yard sign around. You've probably seen our crew working. Like that worked super well for me, because if I had that proof, like it was almost an instant way to book an appointment. It was incredibly easy because they were like, oh yeah, like I remember. And I would even say like, it was Joe Smith down the street, and they're like, yeah, I know Joe. And it was incredibly easy to book an appointment. So I thought why not apply that to our flyers? The same reasoning. Most of our flyers, if you don't know, are like door hangers, of course. And it's like, why would you hang a flyer on the door if you haven't done work in that neighborhood? So we really kept innovating with, like, we've done this many projects on your street. This is literally a homeowner from your area that we took a picture of that is a target audience, which is active grandparents. And then we would, most of it's just changing a few words on a flyer, like St. Paul house painters, your city house painters. It's not like rocket science, and then also the homes on the front, realizing that what resonates with people is what is similar, is what they're familiar with. Like a really nice home, if they have a $2 million home, they see a $2 million home on a flyer, and they see that you're capable of doing their type of painting project, and that you've been servicing and you have social proof of all the work that you've done in the area. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like the absolute neighborhood domination, which is what you're going for. It's like, why would you choose anyone else? Like, we've done, like, we've painted everyone's house, everyone loves us, like, and you're kind of building up to that. You're telling people, like, you're professional and you're local without telling them you're professional and local. You're, like, providing some proof and some evidence of that. So those are a lot of...
Yeah, no, that's great. And what does, that's a great correlation. So what I hear you saying there is, like, if you're in person and you can point to the neighbor, that from a kind of a door-to-door strategy was the most effective.
Correct.
Okay, let me make my flyer do that. If my flyer can point to the neighbor down the road, and it's not a stock image, it's not, a beautiful, flawless model, stock image of a human. It's like their actual neighbor that I took a picture of. That, like that saying on that flyer is going to perform a lot better. So what does the work and what does the calendar look like to make that happen? So I think that's a really good insight. And then how did you then actually implement that into getting flyers good to go? Because I know you do a good job of content. With this, correct me if I'm wrong, this kind of comes down to, like, gathering content. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. Well, I think you just start with small iterations, of course, but I think the first thing we did was we didn't get to the homeowners immediately. We started capturing homes. We just used a real estate agency that would do it for about $100 to $125 for the exterior photos. And that was a really simple way to start getting local really quickly, because we just send a photographer, real estate company out there. They'd bring back 12 photos for $100, and then we could plop them on a flyer, and boom, we're already better than 95% of painters, because we got professional, after pictures of a freshly painted home in your area. And then the next level after that was, like, talking to homeowners that had written reviews of us, the raving customers that loved us. It was a pretty easy selling point for the people that really like you. We just a couple $100 gift card. Hey, we just want to capture a few pictures with our yard sign in front of your house, and we won't give away any information about you. But so then we did that as well. Added that review, added a real client on the back. And then the other thing was just, like, tracking, like, how many projects you've done in the area. If you have a CRM, or if you're tracking your jobs, you can just put, like, X on Johnson Street. You've done 8 projects on Johnson Street. And yeah, I mean, I think it was just the constant, like, how can we get better? The leading question was, like, how can we be even more local, and how can we even get smaller and smaller and smaller, where it's like, this flyer is only for 1,000 people. Like, that's how unique it is. It just keeps getting smaller and smaller, where it's like, holy man, it's like almost creepy, but not too creepy, where it's like, it feels like, wow, like they actually, like, really, like, know the area, and they feel like they're, like, next door.
It's it's funny about that. This gets into, I think, just the idea of, like, head trash when it comes to sales and when it comes to marketing. that I think, if you want a product, or if you don't want a product or service, some how dialed in some marketing is, it does feel creepy. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting this ad. Why am I getting this ad? Siri is listening to me, etc. And until you need a service or a product, then you're like, oh, thank goodness this popped up. And I think painting service is very much like that. It's like something to embrace. Like, people don't need services until they need services. And when they need services, being like, wow, you guys are like really close to me, it's like a relief for customers. You feel like you've experienced that?
Yeah. And it's interesting with our customers, the cycles that people go through. It's like you become relevant all of the sudden. Their paint starts to peel. It's like, oh, like that company that's like maybe slightly annoying, but they're top of mind. And I've heard a quote that says, like, basically to the effect that awareness is more important than affection, and that it's not about just like controlling how people like perceive you, but it's about being top of mind. And that is what partly drove me has been driving me as well, as to be, how can we be top of mind wherever people are searching, wherever people are. And the simplest way to do that is to, flyer your top neighborhoods. And for a lot of people, the flyer is going to be irrelevant. So put a recycling symbol on it. That's fine. They can recycle it and move on. But
that's great, man. So what were some of maybe walk through some of that learning, some of that implementation, some of that execution on improving. What has that done for results for you?
Yeah, I'd love to. And for flyers, I believe we were close to 1 out of 600 for flyers when I first got here. And I guess I wasn't incredibly surprised that it was that low. It was just like, I don't even remember what it was actually, just a generic flyer, not location.
And just to clarify, is that one appointment for every 600 flyers delivered?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, one appointment per 600 flyers delivered. And and now this year we are, for like door hangers, we're close to like 1 out of 400. But our ROI is also a lot better too. So not like the success rate of the appointments are better. The average job size is better as well. So we've seen a significant improvement in door hangers. And I should say, what's also related to this is when I first got here, we weren't doing any direct mail at all. And that's actually our biggest driver right now, is over $2 million in sold revenue from direct mail this year. And we did no direct mail in 2022. 2023, we did saturation, almost only saturation, like EDDM, barely any list mailers, like specific, very just like spray and pray, just a bunch of flyers. And then 2024, we've been doing a lot of list mailings, batches of only 1,000, 2,000 flyers, sometimes 5,000, but usually 2,500. And direct mail has been the most successful campaign this year. So from when we started with EDDM in 2023, we were paying almost 400. We ended the year, I think, in the high 300s for appointments. So that was pretty expensive for us. It's definitely not in my range, what's expected of me. But direct mail this year, we're close to 240, which is really good for us. And we're still trying to drive that down. But
so just for folks who are new to this, maybe, because these things like direct mail, flyers, door hangers, EDDM, maybe take like 2 minutes and just the crash course on what are all of these things, because sometimes it's on the door, sometimes it's in the mailbox. Like, whenever you say these terms, like what types of campaigns are you referring to?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So door hangers, they're pretty self-explanatory, but we're using a half sheet of paper. It's pretty thick. It's high gloss, and it's got a hole punch in it with a rubber band. And for us to deliver those, it's about 35 cents with the delivery, and then with the print, it's like overall like 42 cents for a door hanger on the door. And yeah, it's just a half sheet postcard. And then EDDM is typically like 6.5 by 9, so it's bigger, but it's just on the back of it. It doesn't have like current resident. It doesn't have anything like that. It just has a little box that says like EDDM, direct mail consumer, or like mail consumer or something like that. And it's not personalized at all, but it's very cheap. I think you can still do EDDM for close to 30 cents a piece. So it's cheaper than door hangers for sure. And then what we're currently doing right now is direct mail 6 by 9. So it's like half inch. I mean, it's just barely smaller than a EDDM. And what we're doing we're primarily doing first class mailing with current resident, where you can append the customer name. You can make it personalized, and I believe it feels a little bit more personalized, and it's a lot quicker turnarounds as well. EDDM, you have to schedule up to 3 weeks almost, and first class if I order it right now, it could land in the mailbox, including the print by next week. So it's a quicker turnarounds, more control. But those are the 3 primary paper marketing vehicles that we use. There's other things we use as well, but those are for sure the main 3.
And that is accounting for, referencing some info that you sent me ahead of time, it's trending towards, that's about going to be about a third of the revenue, a third of the sales this year is through those campaigns.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, I'm curious because Micah talked about this in a previous conversation we had on here of just how dynamic it is in thinking about growth. Mm-hmm. You know, one of the things, and Nate talks about this a ton, is like being a data-centric marketer and making decisions based on data. I'm curious, when you think about growth, right? So, trending towards, again, some, about 20% plus 25% growth this year. Mm-hmm. Did you tackle that largely by going to new neighborhoods, or is it more dominating the neighborhoods you're already in? Like how have you, if you're tasked of, all right, Caleb, we're going to grow this year. I think a lot of folks that would be drawn to an episode like this, they want to grow. Would you direct folks to think of all the different neighborhoods you could grow in? Or is what I'm gathering, it's maybe more important to double down on neighborhoods you're already in? How do you think about that?
Mm-hmm. And I guess there is, I'll preface with saying there is some nuance. I do believe in complete neighborhood domination. But when you're at the size of Paris Painting, I think you do need to start to mix in new neighborhoods. But if you're a smaller painting company, your growth is going to be in the areas, more than likely, in the areas you're already selling jobs, you're already producing work. People have already seen your yard sign. You already have some good reviews in that area. And that's really how Paris grew too. I mean, we're larger than most. So I think doubling down, almost all of our growth, over 50% of that growth from this year is from only 10 zip codes. So almost all of our growth is just from a few zip codes. And it's kind of incredible to me that there is always, we haven't hit a limit on any zip code, and I don't have any data to show you what the limit is. I don't know how far it is.
What do you mean by that? The limit on a zip code? Flesh that out.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Flesh out. So I think of one of our areas, 55405 Lake of the Isles. We just keep mailing there, and we keep getting results every time we're mailing, and we're mailing different message, improved messaging, we're keep making it like way more impressive, better photos, everything. But the best response has come from like the 8th mailer, so we keep mailing them like, I mean, even sometimes every couple weeks, and I don't know what the tipping point is, but we just keep growing in that, and I'm pretty sure we're already double what we did last year in that zip code. I think we're at 400,000 revenue just from like a small like there's only like 1,500 homes in that that zip code. So
wait, so okay, that's interesting. So you're doing 400 grand of revenue in a zip code with 1,500 homes.
Yeah, let me check. That's about how many people we deliver to on the walking route. So like when we walk that route.
Roughly though, rough numbers.
Yeah, it's probably a few thousand. I could look at rough numbers, but it's incredible the growth that we're seeing in all of our zip codes, especially around the lakes in the Twin Cities. It just keeps growing. It doesn't seem like, it seems like the cost of per leads actually, it's dropping. It keeps dropping where we keep messaging. Whereas if we're trying to test out new areas, you can expect to pay more. I don't have any, unless you have an incredibly powerful message, but it's hard to tap into new areas. I think it's way more expensive. It's easier to double down. You're going to save a lot of money. And if you're already winning there, you're going to keep winning there. Yeah. So
that's amazing. And so, and really that just is underlying a message. Nate, preaches this too. That local and present dominating. So let's say that's compelling to somebody. How would you go about, if you were working in another business and they wanted to lean into this area? What are like the tactics that they do? What are the tools that they use? Like, how can they get smarter about this stuff?
Yeah, I would. There's a lot of data you could find out there, and you should definitely look at your internal data, like your sold jobs, and look at, put it on a map, look at it, what you've been doing well in the past year. But I think I really do think if you're marketing for a painting company, you need to do at least a little bit of door to door, and you need to get out there yourself and see what the real needs are. And sure, you may have interacted with some of your customers, but you need to also interact with like potential customers that haven't called you, and you need to figure out why they aren't calling you. Because I think a big insight for me as well was I was walking in a lot of these zip codes that were dominating right now 2 years ago, and I was like, holy man, like these homes all need painting. Like every single home could use a paint job. Like they're all over 100 years old. They have a project they could do every year. I mean, they have a lot of square footage. I mean, even their garage is a decent sized job. So I was like, I had the conviction of like, we can really grow here. And I'm almost thinking of it like the stock market, where I'm really bullish on certain neighborhoods. And I'm viewing it like, yeah, 55405, I'm extremely bullish until I see data to prove me wrong, because of the results that we've been getting. So I think you identify your top stocks. I mean, you identify where you've been winning, and you don't put, if you're in the stock market at all, which I think it's kind of fun. Usually lose money, but you don't put your money in your losing stocks. That's like the number one thing is like if you're losing in a stock, you don't just keep pouring money into a stock that you're losing in. You actually want to double down on the ones where you're winning. So I think you figure out where the top zip codes are. I think a lot of companies only need to focus on 10 zip codes and focus on those 10 zip codes. And yeah, I guarantee you'll have more results and you'll spend way less money too. A big thing that happened with Paris painting this year is I actually kind of gave up on certain zip codes. I marketed it a lot less. I concentrated a lot of my spend, and I saw a few zip codes drop, but only a few zip codes dropped. The rest of them almost doubled. So that was what happened, was when I shifted focus from areas where our sold revenue per bid was lower and our success rates lower. I shifted our spend, and yeah, we dropped in a few zip codes, but we rised. I mean, and we're growing a lot this year. So yeah, I think the top 10 zip codes, you got to know what those are. So
Yeah, that's so good. I think that's probably something that is a challenge of scaling, right? Of, if you're a business owner, kind of from 0 to 1 million, 0 to 1.5 million, you really do, you're in it. Like, you're doing the sales.
yeah.
If you're doing the sales, you might even be doing the project management, or you're checking in on it. So you are boots on the ground in those neighborhoods, and you start to hire a salesperson, hire a project manager. You start to have a team, and maybe, there can be a little bit of space that gets created between you and the pavement of the neighborhoods that you're operating in. And then you, are hiring and working with a marketing vendor who they're in a different state. So they're depending on, and there can be a little bit of that space. I think that's a great level of priority, is like, you need to be familiar to the best of your ability with these neighborhoods, and then let that inform the local and present marketing that you're doing. I think that's great. What else is working for you? So that's kind of the local, the flyers, etc. Anything else this year that you feel like has been, a big lift in helping achieve some of the growth?
It's actually like translating what worked for flyers into everything else. So I realized, I looked at our Google ads, looked at our website, looked at a lot of our online presence, and realized that there wasn't synergy. Like, we're almost messaging like completely different messaging online instead of like direct mail and flyers. Like, we know these flyers are performing well. Like, sometimes they're 1 out of 300, 1 out of 200 per flyer. Someone's calling to get an appointment. But then I looked back at what some of our digital partners had built for us in the past, and I realized it was all just very generic, not local, not present at all. And it made a lot of sense to me why we were doing so poorly with Google ads, why we were performing so poorly with a lot of our online search. So this year we've also doubled, if you like kind of lump all the digital together, like online, organic, paid, Facebook and all that, we've more than doubled year over year, like revenue from that, and bids. So bids and revenue from that. So we've grown a lot there by trying to keep the same experience. You want to keep the same experience from when they get the flyer, they go on the website. Okay, it's not a completely different website. Like, it's still local. We still have Jason's story on the website. Like, it actually wasn't in various areas of the website. And I'm like, okay, but I know that people like that story. I've talked to a lot of people that are like, oh, Jason, like, come out, paint my house. And so I think carrying that resonating messaging and the data of like, okay, these flyers are performing really well, we're taking that to our website now, and then we're also tracking it there in Facebook ads as well. So that's been something of just your messaging should be pretty connected across everything. And so
I love that, the kind of a bottoms up approach where it's like, get boots on the ground, get the real context from the customer. What are their needs? How do they talk? What resonates? Put that into the marketing that comes to their door, and then kind of leave a trail of breadcrumbs where it's like they get the same thing. They get similar bites as they work up the sales process.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. On the content side of things, I think this is something I want to circle back to. That this has also been, I think, a pretty big shift in the focus, just time, energy, focus. What does that look like? And maybe what was some of the aha, and then what's been some of the execution around content. And maybe too, just to stack another question in there, like content, I feel like is a word that, I don't know, people can have lots of different, like, what do you mean by content? And maybe that sounds like, duh, don't we all know what content is? But man, there's there's influencers and then there's painting companies, and the content is, those are two totally different things. They need to be two totally different things. So yeah, like whenever you think of content for a painting company, how do you think about that? And then what's been some of the stuff that you guys have done focusing around that in 2024?
I think the key thing with content, and why your content budget should be like pretty significant, is it's an organizational asset. So you own that. So if you're capturing homes, you're capturing homeowners, you're capturing all these things, it's something that you can own. When I'm thinking about my content strategy, it's primarily focused towards my campaigns. So it really depends on what campaigns you're trying to run. Because if you're trying to run Facebook ads, okay, you're going to need a lot of videos, and you're going to be really focused towards that. So this year we created a lot more videos. So basically our goals is where we always start with Paris Painting. I mean, you can make things really complicated really quickly, but if you just start with like, hey, we're trying to do 2 million. We know this is what we sell at an average appointment. We know we need this many appointments. We know we need this percentage of appointments from this campaign. We know we need this type of content for that campaign. So content's kind of like the last thing, but it's almost the most important thing, because your campaign's not going to perform well unless you actually have good content. So when you think of like, if we're going to drive direct mail, some weeks we spend, $1,000 on photo shoots, and that's so that the direct mail can perform better. But then we also own those photos and we use them, we repurpose them for social media, for the website, for building magazines, all that sort of stuff. So I think the content strategy is, I've heard some like social media, you need to be relevant on social media. You need to be like almost an influencer, and Paris Painting hasn't done that yet. And I would love to be the local influencer in the market. And I'm realizing we need more of a personality to do that. But what's really worked for us for the content is, most of our budget's for direct mail flyers. And then we've been running a lot of Facebook ads. So all of our content's just been focused around how can we make these campaigns more successful and ultimately drive down the cost per lead, because people are going to respond better to content that's actually relevant. So I don't know if that answered the question at all.
No, I think so. What I'm gathering from that is, and there's a through line, which, I think that I love the focus that you were talking about of starting with goals, being really clear on goals, and then really drilling down of the best marketing is customer focus. It's almost like, somebody should, like, when it's like, oh, what's your marketing strategy? It's kind of like whatever works. Like, I don't have a marketing strategy. You know what I mean? Like, I just have data. Like, that's kind of how it should be. And whatever you can do to get local present. And it sounds like that has just been a theme, certainly, and obviously across the Aleph partners. That's something that Nate is really, really pressing into. So that's what I'm gathering. It's like you got to capture the work you're doing, and it can proliferate into your other campaigns where you can reuse this stuff, you can recycle it, but all the while it's going to be local. You're going to be present.
And I'd say, like, I love Nate's local and present strategy, and that's what we implement at Paris. The only thing I'd add to that is, from what my marketing professor like drilled into our heads, he worked at General Mills, and he just would always say, like, know your consumer and give them what they want. And that's been also the driving force, is just like, know your consumer. You can know your consumer through data. You can use ChatGPT. You can pull data from what you already have. But you can also know people very quickly with door-to-door. So there's various methods to know your customer very quickly. To give them what they want is how we had a lot of our successes. Like I just realized a lot of people had a need for carpentry. A lot of people had a need for, they were curious about painting their stucco. A lot of people had a need for preserving their historic home. And knowing them and giving them what they want, it's like everyone's happy. The messaging resonates, everything performs better, and you're just wasting a lot less money.
I love that, man. And there's Mr. Beast is the top YouTube influencer guy in the world, right? And I've heard him talk about this, and I think a similar concept to what you're saying, or what your professor is getting at there, is like know your customer, give them what they want. Sometimes people who make content, if it doesn't resonate, it's like they'll blame the algorithms. It's like, the YouTube algorithms are not helping my content, or the Facebook algorithms, or whatever. And Mr. Beast is like, anytime you say a sentence like that, just replace algorithms with algorithm with audience. It's like the algorithm is just delivering what people want. That's what it's really good at. The reason why these companies are so profitable and so big is because they've gotten really good at delivering what people want. You have to make stuff that people want. And I think that painting contractors, God love them, they definitely try to set it and forget it. And sometimes it's like, oh, this campaign sucks. This direct mail is not working. Door-to-door is not working. And they haven't done the work to really understand, what does your customer want, and are you giving them what they want? I think that's a great message.
Yeah, only thing I'd add to that is like we are in a desires-based economy, and if you're only targeting people's needs, you actually need to target what people's wants are. So a percentage of our marketing is also focused purely on transformation, cosmetic, make your life better, really marketing. And what marketing, when you produce better content, you're giving people what they want. You're in the desires-based economy where people just want a better life. They don't care about painting. Like I've come to the conclusion after door-to-door talking to almost 1,000 people is that no one cares about painting. They care about their home. They care about their life, their family. They care about other things. And so if you're just talking only about yourself, they don't care. They care about themselves and what they care about, the gap from where they are to where they want to be. And you need to be able to take them from where they are to where they want to be with your marketing. So that's a part of it.
That's great. Good stuff, man. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap. Appreciate you making the time for this. Super exciting what you have going on. I'll definitely look forward to having you back on in a little while and checking back in on how things are going and what the learnings are. But great work, brother, and best of luck on the rest of 2024.
Yeah, thanks, Hoken. I really appreciate it.